Hi students, today we are going to discuss about the planning process. Planning process is one of the vital activity in management. Is a major principles of management also. So first of all, we need to define how the planning process can be done, how it can be executed. Planning process it can be grouped into different activities. First of all, you can identify the establishing objectives and identify the alternative, selecting the choices, the best alternative among various alternatives, and implementation of alternatives. And the last one is the supportive plans. What are all the supportive plans which can enhance our planning process? Finally, execution, which is going to be one of the vital task. Okay, so let's know about the planning process one by one. First of all, establishing the objectives in the sense every organizations they would have got a clear goals about what should be done in future, and probably the top management would have a guideline to every one of the person to design how the objectives are going to be. So we can distinguish that employee objectives as well as organizational objectives. So organizational objectives, it can be a kind of, even we can call as a mission also. So how we are going to be identified in future, what will be our objectives, whether our organization is going to be the number one organization in the particular field, and our product should be reached to all the places. So these are all the examples of organizational goals. But talking about employees' objectives, so how many units will have to be produced by an employee per day, and what are all the tasks to be done when he is executing his regular operations. So these are all employees related objectives. Next ones we can call it as selecting alternatives. So before you are taking the planning, you need to identify the different kind of alternatives. First of all, we need to identify what is your plan. For example, we are going to introduce a new kind of soft drinks. Imagine yourself, already you have been selling nutritive based drink, but it has been instructed that one of the soft drinks is going to be introduced in your company, and you are going to list down the task, the grouping of activities, what should be done first, and how it can be allocated, and how these responsibilities are given to our employees. So based on the grouping of activity, the departmentation can be created. Either, for example, purchasing of all the raw materials, it can be given to purchasing department. Dealing with all financial related activities, which will be given to finance department, and selling the product, which can be combined as marketing as well as sales. And selecting the manpower, which could be done by HR. So we are all planning according to the task wise. It can be the grouping of activity which can be planned. So this is the first one. We need to be organized. And second one, as I told you, so what are all the alternatives? For example, to implement something, what could be done? For example, you are going to start a new branch in one area. You are identifying the alternatives. Is it necessary? Or instead of starting one more branch, why can't we add one more unit in our existing company? What kind of the major tasks which are required? Either we need to have any specific tools to have particular operations. So you are making the different kind of alternatives to execute your plan successfully. Next category is called as selecting the best alternatives. So once all the alternatives have been listed down, you'll have to focus on which alternative could be appropriate to reach our goals. This is what we can call it as selecting the best alternative. Then last one we can call it as executions. Execution is one of the major activity in planning process. Many of the leaders would have planned a different kind of process, and even they would have been thinking how it can be executed, but we need to list down that which one should be executed first, and what will be the sequence of execution, and how the outcome is going to be. Most of the people, we would always think that our outcome should always be positive, So making the right execution, which plays a major role in planning process. So planning process could be successful if your steps which would be executed in a proper order. So this is what we can call it as planning process. So again we can recall it, we can recall the whole points once again. Establishing the objectives, identify the alternatives and selecting the best alternatives, implementation of alternatives, identify any kind of supportive plans, and the executive of all the plans in a proper manner. So this is what we can call it as planning process in organization.